Some of you don't care about Pac-12 football, but I'm telling you, if you care about the national scene of college football, I think you need to start paying attention to Oregon. So, Oregon has their first scrimmage of the fall camp yesterday. Duck Territory is our 24/7 site. They've got wall-to-wall coverage of this if you want to go check it out. But the glaring takeaway when I pulled their scrimmage intel report up was Anthony Brown, who is the starting quarterback for Oregon, 5 of 11 in 4 series, no points. Now, they did some situational work later. I think it improved a little bit. I'm not a big fan of reading that. So Robbie Ashford is a guy that, depending on who you listen to, could be anywhere from the 2nd to 4th best quarterback they have up there. Sounded like he had the better statistical day. You don't know how many reps he had against 1 defense, 2 defense, etc. But I have no doubt this is Anthony Brown's job. And the reason I say that is because Mario Cristobal has been perfectly clear that this is Anthony Brown's job. But I think it's time we start watching Ty Thompson a little bit closer. Not in week 1 or week 2, but I'm very curious how much we're going to be able to utilize, if we're Oregon, how much we're going to be able to utilize the full extent of the weaponry we have on this team. Because I am not being overly hyperbolic when I tell you this is as good a group of talented wide receivers and running backs and tight ends even as I've seen them have maybe ever. And you ask yourself, I don't want to use waste because that's not the right word, but for lack of a better word, are we going to see some of that go to waste because we don't have the trigger man at quarterback to make it all happen? And so that's a concern I have. Granted, it's through 1 scrimmage, so we'll take it for what it is through 1 scrimmage. But if they smother teams defensively, this is a non-issue. But if they're in some games where they have to trade points, which I think they very well may be, and you got all those wideouts out there and their tight ends are ridiculously talented, they may have one of, if not the best running back combos in college football. And we look at the schedule here. I mean, if they're playing Cal or they're playing at UCLA later in the seasons where the majority of their conference test comes, but if they're playing those teams, man, and they can't put up more than 24, 26 points on the board, and trust me, this offense should be doing a lot more than that, you start to question things. So again, keep in mind what I just said as we move on. Later in the season, you got the Ohio State game in week 2, but it's later in the season where a lot of their bigger conference tests come. Now, this is really good news. The running back situation, very good news. Because of what we're talking about here, potentially being somewhat limited in incorporating fully the wide receiver unit for lack of the ability to at the quarterback situation, C.J. Verdell and Travis Dye, again, if you're living in the South or you're living in the Big Ten, those aren't 2 names that are just right there on the middle of your radar. This is an insanely talented running back duo. And when you put both of them together, they check all the boxes. The between the tackles, the different sizes, the different skill sets, the ability to receive out of the backfield, pass pro, they got it all. And so they've got a couple of guys here that if I were to put them, let's say, in Florida Gator uniforms, the whole country would probably be talking about them. Because it's Oregon, they're tucked away in the Pac-12 a little bit, I don't think everyone has their eye on them. Those 2 are about as good as it gets in the country. And so early on, if the passing game's not there, these are guys that you can ride. And I know some of you, I think this is the way it works in college football a lot of times in general. When you get a very established impression of a team in your mind, to the degree that Chip Kelly did it when he used to be at Oregon, you never shake it. And so when you think Oregon tailback, you think 5'11", 170, a lot more shifty, run around you instead of run through you. That's not this. These guys could suit up in any conference in America and more than hold their own on any kind of preseason all-conference award list. So they've got that. I don't question that. They've got that. But I wonder if there's going to come a time this year, depending on how the season starts to play out, if Mario Cristobal and his staff look at each other and say, it's just time to let our horses run. I'm talking about the young guys. You got a guy like Justin Flo or all those young receivers. They got 3 freshman receivers they think are as good as anyone who's walked in the door up there. They got Ty Thompson, true freshman quarterback, has a ceiling that could deliver on being about as good as anyone they've had walk in the door there. Now, he's not there right now, but I wonder if there's going to come a time this year where they look around and say, I don't for sure know what we're going to get out of these guys if we put them on the field, but I know the upside is a lot better than what we have on the field right now. And if we're going to ultimately accomplish what we want to with this team, these cats are going to have to play. I don't care that they're 18 years old. They have more upside than the guys we have on the field. Now, that sounds a little Xboxy. I know that. Because those young guys have to put the decision on the table. You got to at least be performing consistently enough. You have to at least have shown that coaching staff that not only can you do it right, you rep enough to where you don't do it wrong very often, or else they can't make the decision. You have to make it close. And so I guess it's a two-parter. Are those guys going to make that decision possible? And then is that coaching staff going to pull the trigger? That's going to be a fun team to watch, though. That Oregon team is going to be a fun team to watch. That's a team with a ceiling that's just, it's higher than just able to do some cool stuff in the Pac-12.